Right. A question from Matthew Pickhaver, please.
More than 656,000 people have signed an online petition opposing the redefinition of marriage. Isn't it time the government rethought its plan?
This is coming up. We're ahead of the game here. It's coming up in the House of Commons Monday and Tuesday, a debate on gay marriage and whether gay marriage should become legalised. Peter Bazalgette.
I think it's very simple. I think gay people and straight people should have exactly the same rights to marry, civil partnership, anything else. And it's a perfectly clear proposition, and I was going to say one more thing. I have a very clear memory from just before the last general election. I was in Tottenham Court Road in the West End of London, and I met Chris Bryant in the street. And I met him there, and we had a quick chat. And he was buying a suit, and he was buying a suit because he was about to have his civil partnership.
This suit.
And it was that suit. It was that suit, and a very nice suit it is too. And I have to say, that day, just before his civil partnership, Chris Bryant was a very happy man, and that's good enough for me.
Lovely story. But that's not quite the issue, is it? Because well, the issue is marriage as opposed to civil partnerships, which are already part of the law.
The issue
and
is...
the 650,000 people, odd, who are signing this, are against the concept of marriage.
I recognise they're against it, but I completely...
Do you see any distinction between heterosexual and homosexual?
No, I made my position clear in the first answer. I think that gay people and straight people should have exactly the same rights, and the reason I mentioned the story about Chris, and it is relevant, is that that's what makes people happy, and we want people to be happy.
Gillian Tett.
At the risk of sounding boring, a bit like an old married couple, I would thoroughly agree. I mean, it's a personal choice.
OK. You have an interesting view about old married couples.
Well, we're sitting at opposite ends of the table, so that helps.
Yes, sir. On there, on back there.
There may be 650,000 people who've signed this petition, but how many more people are in the country who are in favour of gay marriage?
OK. And you, sir, in the second row? Yeah.
I was going to say, as a Muslim, I still think people should have an equal right in society. Whatever your religion is, you're living in a 20th century, like, modern world. You can live side by side without having any, like, differences and get along with each other, because at the end of the day, you're going to live and you're going to die, and whatever happens in the afterworld, it's God to decide it all. It's not for you to decide.
So that, are you saying, despite being a Muslim, you actually support the notion of gay marriage? Right.
I wonder what Jesus would have thought on the subject.
You wonder what Jesus would have thought?
Yes, because Jesus loved everyone. I'm sure he loved gay people, he loved straight people, and I've known lots of lovely gay people, and I've known lots of horrible heterosexual people. I think it's disgusting it's even been discussed.
Okay. And you say in the second row. Yes.
I agree with the gentleman on the left that everyone should be given the equal rights, and I think it doesn't affect anyone else who's currently in a marriage if someone else decides to get married. It's not about redefining marriage, it's about opening it up to all people. And if you're in a marriage, it doesn't affect you. And if you're signing a petition to suggest that you don't agree with it, that's fantastic. But as the gentleman said down there, there's going to be an awful lot more people that support it.
Okay. Philip Hammond.
Well, I've not been a supporter of the same-sex marriage bill, but I'm resigned to the fact that I'm in a minority and that it will pass through Parliament. I think before we had civil partnership, people who are in same-sex relationships suffered some real disability. They suffered some real disadvantage in the way they were treated. And I think the civil partnership solution has removed those disadvantages. The problem that many people who object to this change now have is that, contrary to what the gentleman who last spoke said, this change now does redefine marriage. It means for millions and millions of people who are married, the meaning of marriage is changed. And there is a real sense of anger among many people who are married that the government thinks that it has the ability, any government thinks that it has the ability to change the definition of an institution like marriage. And that is why the people who are opposed to this feel so very, very strongly about it.
And you are... And you are one of them. You feel strongly in exactly that way.
I don't feel strongly about this because I come at it from a point of view of religious conviction. Many of the people who object have very strong religious convictions. I have just never felt that this is what we should be focusing on. We have civil partnership, which seems to me to deal with the very real problem that same-sex couples faced. And it seems to me that there was no huge demand for this, and we didn't need to spend a lot of parliamentary time and upset vast numbers of people in order to do this.
And, Chris Bryant.
I just think everybody should be treated equally under the law. It's very simple, and incidentally, the government's version of the bill that's coming forward on Monday says that homosexual couples, same-sex couples, will be able to either be in a civil partnership or be married, but heterosexuals will only be able to form marriages. I think we should just have both for everybody. It should be exactly the same for everybody. And I've always felt slightly upset when people say, but this is going to completely undermine marriage. I mean, the papal nuncio once told me, when he asked me how my wife was, and I said, a man, and he said, what do you mean, very butch? And I said, no, he is actually a man, I'm homosexual. And he said then, you know, you will do more damage to this world than climate change. And now, I mean, you laugh, I laughed at the time, it was a social engagement, but actually, some of the views, I just say to some people who, for many, maybe understandable reasons, are passionately opposed to this move, just think of how you advance your arguments, because it can be very, very painful to some people. And I would just say to Philip, just one thing, I would accept your argument more if you'd ever voted for an equal age of consent, for gays to be allowed to adopt, for gays in the military to be able to pursue their career, or in the or for that matter, if you'd voted for civil partnerships. There have been 23 votes in the time since you've been in Parliament on these issues. On 12 of them, you've not even bothered to turn up. On 11, you voted against.
I'd like to... There are a number of people who are applauding what Philip said, as opposed to... Would any of you like to speak fearlessly, because this is an open debate with what Chris Bryant just said. Do you agree or disagree with him?
I've got a lot of gay friends, and I've never in my life ever had anything, any views against people being gay. That's society. But I believe that marriage is something that possibly we're playing around with just a little bit too much. Marriage is, and I could be wrong here, is described in the Bible, a book that's been around for a lot more years than open gay people. But it's been described in the Bible. It's been described in the Bible as where a man and a woman come together.
It's a religious matter for you?
Personally, yeah. I kind of believe that that's me and my wife coming in front of God and being blessed by God with the name of a marriage. Now, I don't believe that gay couples should have any different rights to straight couples, but I kind of think it would be nice to keep a hold of that, the name marriage.
Can I just gently suggest to you, because I'm religious as well. I used to be a vicar in the Church of England, and I've married more people probably than anybody else in the room, right, if you see what I mean. But and incidentally, I'd say to the lady in the back, I know some very horrible gay people as well, but that's a different matter. All I'd say to you, sir, is that when the Book of Common Prayer was produced in the 16th century and then in the 17th century, which the Church of England has used for years, it said that one of the reasons for marriage was mutual support one for another. And actually, I suspect that in most marriages, that is as important as bringing up children or anything else. And I don't see that a gay couple aren't as entitled to be able to do that as anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Civil partnership. Why does it need to be labelled as marriage? Why Why can't a gay couple accept a civil partnership is where they've come together?
Because we're the same. Because we're, in the end, I think it is that thing about we are all equal under the law. And actually, I tell you, the thing that changes is that you bind families together when they can come to that event and celebrate because they bought new suits or whatever. It's just a really important part of that binding together of a couple and of societies.
All right, the woman here.
The issue that I have is not necessarily whether or not gay people should be allowed to be married, but there are religious leaders who are very opposed to it. I mean, I know that you were a vicar, but there are vicars who are...
I wasn't a very good one, so yes.
Who wouldn't wish to marry a gay couple for their personal religious beliefs. And I don't think that there's going to be as much protection as has been claimed for them, in the sense that had they opposed to marrying a gay couple, people could then come back at them and say, well, actually, that's not fair, that's inequality, you shouldn't be allowed to do that. And so you can't bring in a bill where it's okay for them to do it.
So you're frightened they'll not be protected, people who don't feel that it's right to do it?
That we're promising that they can say no if they don't want to marry these people together.
Charles Kennedy.
Well, my understanding is that there are very sufficient safeguards in this legislation already. And I think the thing, I mean, the three of us in the Commons here, I'm with the majority of you on the panel, I have no difficulty with this legislation, the principle of it whatsoever. I think the conduct of the debate in Parliament, and this is not about party politics, I think it's got to be reflective of the very strong and sincere views that an awful lot of people in this country have, and the genuine anxieties, whether it's in a professional sense, like clerics of whatever denomination, or whether it's individual heterosexual couples who just feel that the equilibrium of their life, their upbringing, their attitudes in a thoroughly responsible way is being rocked by all of this.
Well, how do you reflect that if you're going to change the law?
No, I think that in the process of changing the law, I think that we've got to offer the reassurance that we can. And the case that you put about clerics who are worried that they may be put in a difficult legal position, given their personal views, we've got to get those messages of reassurance which are there out. But I do hope that one day, maybe beyond the lifetimes of all of us in this room tonight, this issue, historically, will be looked at the way that we now look at votes for women or the abolition of slavery. And when the change comes... When the change comes, we won't apply the prism of time and say how awful were the people who opposed it, but we'll maybe understand a bit better that when you do have an enormous social change for so many people, it's hardly surprising it's going to cause distress.
All right. I want to move on. I'd like to get another couple of questions in if I can. And I've got one here from Mary Hullis, please. Briefly, if you would, yes.
Because firstly, the largest petition on the online in favour of this legislation is 10 times smaller than the Coalition for Marriage's petition. 66,000 people have signed a petition for gay marriage, and 656,000 people. That's the largest petition there's been for years in this country.
Yeah, but if you wanted to...
Sorry, can I just finish? And can I make it clear? It's not about equality, it's about confusing equality with uniformity. Right? All people are equal. I believe, as a Christian, I believe that we are all equal. We're actually all equally sinners in the eyes of God. This is not about... Listen, marriage, the word marriage means union of one man and one woman exclusively. It's about celebrating the differences between men and women, the complementary but fundamental differences, and about the potential for procreation. Love and commitment is an important part of marriage, but you can't legislate for that. You can't measure that, right? You have to legislate for things like where the law is concerned with consummation.
All right.
And what about the divorce clause? And you
quickly,
cannot redefine something that is a creation ordinance. You might as well try and redefine day and night.
OK, well, now, I'll be very quick. I'm not going to have an argument with you about religion, because it sounds to me as though you know rather more about religion than I do. What I am going to point out to you is that your statistical point is not really valid. That 660,000 people care enough to vote against 60,000 people. Take the sentiment in this room tonight. The sentiment in this room tonight, sir, is against you, actually. The sentiment in this room is in favour of gay marriage.
All right, the points have been made. A question from Mary Hullis, please. Marie Hullis.